I'm Nathan Meunier. I'm the North American marketing person for Czech Games Edition.
Yeah.
We're a Czech-based company that has offices in Prague and Brno, and also a smaller US team. And we've been around for a long time, almost 15 years now, and we make kind of thematic heavy Euro games and some other types of stuff. But most people kind of know us for code names, but we've been doing a lot more like interesting stuff lately. So yeah.
You have very famous games.
Thanks.
Okay. Then this is the new expansion of Arnak, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So I can tell you if you're curious. So this is the second expansion for Lost Winds of Arnak, and people are kind of curious, like, what's in the game. So everything you're seeing in front of you is in the expansion. It adds a lot of new content. Pretty much like 95% of what you see can be included in, just mixed into the regular multiplayer game. So you can mix and match different pieces if you just want to play with like a regular multiplayer setup. The previous expansion added 6 asymmetrical leader characters, so that's kind of changed things up a lot. This expansion adds 2 new leaders, and each one has sort of a different approach to gameplay. So in the previous expansion, all of the leaders had they were angled towards a specific area of the game itself. And in this case, these are a little bit more modular. So you've got the mechanic who starts off the game, kind of weak and then builds up momentum over time. They have this kind of cog that when their deck focuses on cycling their cog, so they'll trigger it and it turns 90 degrees. So it'll go trigger that, and then depending on the way they trigger it. So if it was like a silver spin, you would choose just one of the 2 options. If it was a more powerful gold spin, you could choose the gold cog or both of those. And as the game, as rounds progress, you'll get more cogs to choose from. Randomly, you'll pick one and then discard one to expand your system. So you're building an engine over the course of the game that gets more powerful as you go. Then we've got the journalist, who has also a very kind of modular style of play. You have art newspapers that you can kind of slot into your board, so you can shuffle them or you can pick the ones you like. And then his focus is throughout the course of the game, you'll start off scattering all these tokens, like little newspaper tokens, at each site in the game. So when you travel to a site, you can also spend 1 additional movement to write an article about the site. So that then you'd pick up the article and you can either hang on to it for later, or you can use it immediately to cover up and trigger one of the effects. So when you fill up a whole newspaper, you can then get the more powerful bottom effect. And if you fill the row across, you can then open up some of these idle slots, so that you have the opportunity to gain idols and use them without necessarily burning points in the end. So both of those characters are very kind of customizable, so you can kind of suit your style of play. They add a lot to the experience, and they're also balanced against the previous leaders, so you can essentially mix and match any of them. And then the other thing we included in the rulebook is a way to, if you don't have the previous expansion but you want to play a multiplayer game with just these 2, there's there's several leader archetypes that you can construct using just the basic items in the game. You'll just pick certain items and it kind of balances that, so you can play a regular game with these. The main thing that I like about this expansion, though, all the stuff you can see here is playable, but like, it adds a 6-chapter story arc campaign, so you can play for solo or cooperatively, and that's kind of a new element to the game that, like, for people who are solo gamers or don't have a bigger group, you can actually like sit down and kind of, they're very puzzly. So each scenario has a story element. It's got bonus objectives. So you start off each chapter with a particular objective that you need to be able to, like, you must achieve this to win that scenario and go on. But you also have bonus goals that allow you to, if you can achieve them, you get bonus goodies, which are awesome because they help you progress better in the campaign. But it's also harder to achieve all of them because they spread your resources, your time, and energy. So there's 6 chapters, and each chapter has its own additional deck of bonus cards. These will come up in the course of progressing through a chapter. The cool thing about these cards is that you'll get a little bit of story flavor text, and then you have to choose an option. So you can choose to gain an immediate, an effect that's immediate, so you gain that bonus, or you could hang on to the card and use this later when you need it. If you're playing the campaign, you also see these little bonus icons. Whichever one you choose, you can then mark off that on this particular progress sheet. So from playing across multiple games, you'll slowly progress during these different tracks that potentially will unlock new cards and story threads. It's kind of a fun progression element that makes the campaign very replayable, because you can't really unlock all of them in one run of the campaign. The cool thing is these can be used in the regular multiplayer game just by using some of the new site tiles. You can like shuffle these into the game, and then it'll let you like use these modularly without worrying. You don't have to use them in the campaign. But if you're using them in the campaign, then you'll also pay attention to this as well, which is kind of fun. And there's 6, so they all thematically align to each chapter. When you're playing the campaign, cooperatively, you'll be getting these. Each person gets a little carrier pigeon token. So what you'll do is you can pass a resource to your teammate once per turn. So you'll send something over, and then the carrier pigeon will basically take a nap and go to sleep. And then the next round they'll refresh. So you want to be passing them back and forth often because it gives you an opportunity to get 1 cent back. So that's kind of a fun way. If you're playing solo, it's a little bit different, but that is like a fun little wrinkle when you're playing cooperatively. There's also new research trees. There's double-sided, so it adds more to the game. The cool thing about this is it's thematically tied to some of the story campaigns elements. So in one level, you've got a rising water scenario where you have to get up the research track and stay above the water, and also you'll find survivors that you have to then help get to the top. And each scenario on the chapter is very puzzle-like, so they're all different. So they change up the game, the board usage in different ways. So there'll be unique layouts that are thematically aligned to different story elements, and they're really clever. And they have there's multiple endings that you can possibly get depending on how well you score in each chapter and what you unlock and how you play. In addition to that, this expansion just adds a lot more items and artifacts that kind of play off the story stuff a little bit more, but also adds a lot of more replayability. So this is essentially what's in the box, and this is the second expansion for Arnak.
Okay, well, thank you.
Cool. I also have one more of our other new release I can shift over if you want.
Sure.
Let me unplug this for a second. This is the quick and easy one.
Thank you. Box, right? Yeah.
I'll have to probably set this. I can just hold it up. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is our new heavy-duty Euro game that's coming out at Essen. So it's launching now. Kutna, Hora is an actual city in the Czech Republic that you can visit. It's historically very beautiful, and it was a source of silver mining and ore smelting in the 14th century. So there's this is basically a heavyweight historical game where you are kind of recreating the construction and growth of this famous Czech city, where you're doing mining, you're building the city out on a shared board, you're getting different guilds and different buildings and structures, and it's kind of like basically a heavy-duty city builder Euro with thematic elements that are very historically aligned. But there's a couple things that make it pretty unique. I'm going to grab these cards. So in the game, you basically it's asymmetrical as well. So everyone will have a different configuration of different guilds. You are essentially playing as families that will be aligned with different guilds. So the guilds on the board, you have these little tiles. So there's knock this over. There's basically 6 guilds in the game, and each guild ties in thematically to one of the available resources. So there's the wood guild, there's the food guild, there's the beer guild, and these all tie into the population's happiness. And then there's the ore and the smelting guild and the sort of bureaucracy guild. These are all tie into the underground mining operation of the city. So at the beginning of the game, you'll have different drafts where each player will have the opportunity to pick a selection of guilds, and it's asymmetrical and it's different each time. So it's very highly replayable and very different depending on what you do. So, these are let's say if these are the guilds I pick, I can slot them anywhere into my player board. I can bring this closer if that helps. So there's the player board. You would slot the guilds in, and then where you slot them in actually represents what the resource becomes. So in this case now, as I'm building out buildings that produce food, I think I put these in upside down. I would be using these types of structures here. Whereas if this was the mining, and then also the wood. Sorry, put it upside down. Okay, there we go. So this is basically your dual layer player boards where you'll track all your resources. So where you plug in the guilds also is where that becomes the tracker. So this is my now meat resource tracker, for example, and this accounts for the production. So you'll be producing different resources, you'll be building structures, you'll be sending miners into the underground, and working also building your reputation. The cool thing about this game is that it is very easy to learn. It's heavy. There's a lot going on, but you can boil everything down into just a handful of actions. a few quick things that are really interesting about the game, because it's historically about coin production. We've managed to align the game thematically with the coins in the game. So whenever you're gaining resources or spending resources to do something, it's all in the form of coins. So you'll be spending money representing the value. So if you're gaining production, you'll get the current production value times the current market value. So the thing that makes this game particularly unique is it has a dynamic supply and demand economy. That's modeled after a real world economy, so how that works. So as you will be building certain structures, you'll be introducing supply into the market. So let's, for example, say if I was building some wood, or building a structure that built wood, it would basically affect the economy in different ways. So I'll demonstrate that in a second, but I'll kind of run through the different actions. So the things you can do in the game are plot. So you have these are all the actions you can do in a particular round. So the game plays out across multiple rounds of every player playing 2 actions, and it goes around. You play 2 more actions, and you play 1 more. Then once everyone's done that, the round ends. You get your cards back, and you progress. And so this is basically an action selection deck where each card is double-sided. So when you're choosing what to do, you're also kind of choosing what you aren't going to be doing as much that round. And there's basically almost 2 of everyone. So things you can do is you'll say, if I want to play a card to plot, I would plot, and I would take one of my player board things, and I would spend resources, the money to pay for the right to basically plot, and you're building off of an existing building or off the sides of the board. So I would plot, and that's one thing I can do. The next thing I could do would probably potentially be rights. So when I'm doing that, I'm spending money to basically buy the right to build one of the types of buildings that my guild can build. So for me, I would say, cool, I've got wood production capabilities. I'll spend 5 times the current cost of wood, so that'd be 10 gold, to purchase this, and it would sit in my player board basically. So that would stay there, and then the next thing I would do potentially, and you can do these in any order, but this is sort of demonstrating the flow of the game, is maybe I would want to build something. So this building I just acquired, I would pay, basically I would build it and I'd be paying the wood cost, so it'd be 10 to basically build it. So I would build this on a plot that I own, and that would trigger a whole bunch of things that would happen. So in sequence, basically I would go down and resolve that. So I would basically gain 7 wood production, which is awesome. So I would move this up, and that means in a future round when I generate income, I'll be 7 times the value of wood. But then because I'm introducing supply into the market, this is where the supply and demand economy works. I'm adding goods into the market by wood structures. So that would basically affect the value. So if there was this, I would then move this. The symbol there moves this down 1. So then the value of wood would be 2, for example. And then I would resolve this. So in this case, this also says to increase the population. So for example, as the value of something goes down, because you're meeting some of that demand with the supply, when the population grows, it reintroduces basically demand back into the system. So the values potentially can go back up again. And that's the magic of this game. So you're basically doing different actions that affect all areas of the city, and everyone's basically building things out for their own guilds, but they can't build too much without affecting other players. And you want to see that the interaction between how the different systems play together really makes it pretty unique. So in this case, I would build my structure that's built, and then I would take my markers. So this is cool because you get a bonus action basically. I would mark it, so it's mine. At the end of the game, this area scores based on adjacent symbols. And the cool thing is because it's a very historically aligned game, these are actual symbols used by the builders, the masons, in that time period. So we kind of had a lot of those little nice touches added into the game. So this game would score based on at the end of the game, it would score based on what's around it essentially. And if the symbols match, you get points for that, and you can amplify that by these other systems later. So because I removed this building, I also get a bonus. So that would increase my reputation by 1 in this case, which is great because that eventually would mean I could do certain things in the game for cheaper and also get bonus points at the end of the game. So that's one way to squeeze out some additional points from building stuff. So going back to the other cards and that are capabilities, you start off with some income in the game, but you don't generate income every round. It's not automatic. You have to trigger when you want to do it. So because I've built a structure that produces resources, now if I trigger income, I'll then gain income for all of my resources that potentially produce. So if I had, say, this, I'd get 1 times the current value of basically the meat. I would get 3 times the current value for that, and you would basically get coins in representing that. So strategically, you choose income at certain times. You obviously want to do when you run out of money, but you want to also try to do it when the market is best in your favor. So that's another thing to pay attention to, the shifting economies. When you do income, you can also spend 10 of that money back to, if there was any of these counselors in the pool, you can bribe them essentially to nudge them into a spot. Excuse me. And when you do that at the end of the game, they are combo multipliers for different areas of the game. So this might help more than one person, but the idea is to try to trigger that when you want to help yourself the most out of everybody. Excuse me. The other things you can do is mining. So you're building the city out on this shared board, but you're also mining underground. So you'll be going down and building off existing mining channels, and that affects more of this particular system of economy. So these two different factions of the economy. Mining is cool because it's a different way. It scores differently. So this is scored based on adjacency. This is scored row by row. You go and see who has when you calculate the stars, see what the current value of that is, and you go first, second, and third. Whoever has the most of particular stars will get the point value there. So that's one area where you can kind of focus your different scoring in different directions. The last thing historically is the city was built outside of the city over the period of time. They built a historic Gothic cathedral that actually is existing there today. You can visit it. It's very big and beautiful. So what I could do is, as I gain these tokens, Pelican tokens, you can spend them and use your St. Barbara's action to flip them over, and you would build the next piece of the cathedral. You would gain that benefit. So this would be something I would get 2 reputation points, and then the next person to build the next piece will then get the next better thing. So over time, building the cathedral gets better for everyone that does it. And historically, that also was thematically, this cathedral wasn't built in the city because the way basically the land was owned by the church, or I guess it was not really sure exactly who owned the building. They wanted to build it outside of the city to have their own representation of religious stuff. So in any event, that's kind of the main. The last thing you can do is there's a wild card here. There's a joker here. So the joker can be used to kind of replicate any one of these other actions, but you're also paying a penalty in terms of your reputation to do that. So that's kind of the big overview. Everything kind of it's asymmetrical. The dynamic supply and demand economy really changes things up, and the different guild configurations and how people play impacts the flow of the game. So no 2 games are exactly alike. I played a couple of these games last night, and it was each time was a different strategy based on what came up and how people played. And it's a high player interaction, so the players are all not directly interacting with each other in terms of conflict. There's no take that or anything. It's just the systems at play will be influenced by each of the different guild things. So as you're building stuff out and doing different things, it'll affect these different economic systems and kind of cycle in and shuffle different aspects of the game. So you're always planning ahead, but then you have to adjust your plans based on what happens in every round. So you're always kind of engaged and paying attention. The 2 cool things about this game is all the components here. This is not wood or plastic. It's a recycled material called rewood, which is 80% of recycled wood materials, and these are actually made, I believe, in Germany. I believe. But yeah, so this is you've got a very fine level of detail, but it's mostly wood and it's recycled. So it's actually more environmentally friendly, but also very beautiful. Because it's a very European game, heavy Euro with a historical focus. We didn't really want to use plastic for this particular game, but we got these components that have a similar level of detail to them. So that's kind of fun. And the other thing we have, which I didn't bring a copy with me, so all the coins, you get cardboard coins in the game, but we're also going to have an upgraded metal coin pack. That's really, it's very clinky in your hands. It's got nice sounds to it. And the design is actually based on the actual Czech groschen, which is the coin that was made by the city in that time period. So another little bit of historical tie-in. So yeah, that is Kutna Hora, the City of Silver. It's available at Essen now.
Okay,
Sorry, there's a whole lot. It's a lot to get through.
You said full game rules. Two games, 15 minutes. Wow.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I can pack these up and leave these here, if that's okay. Or do you want me to pack them up and leave the copies here for you?
Oh, yes, please.
That'd be great. Thank you.